Hello! In this video, I'm going to be going through the new Layout Delays plugin. As the name may suggest to you, it creates delays based on layouts, and it can do all kinds of crazy animations, so get fucking ready. We can do a straight line left to right. We can do a straight line right to left. We can do two straight lines going out from center and coming back to center. We can do two sets of that at the same time. We can do three straight lines going right. We can do four straight lines going left. We can go down with it. We can go up with it. We can split it vertically. We can split it diagonally. We can do a circle from center out. We can also go the other direction and go out to center. We can do a spiral with one leg on it, with two on it, with three going the other direction, and four, or as many as you fucking want. And we can put wings on it, and it kind of looks like Pac-Man dying. There's also a random because shuffle selection didn't exist already, and we can do all kinds of other weird shit with it. But that's the basic highlights of it. It can be really handy, I think, for cuestack shows. It can be handy for punt shows. Let's get into it. All right, so as the name suggests, this plugin is using layout information to generate delays, layout XY information. You may have seen something similar from another plugin developer by the name of Voldernov, I believe is how his name is pronounced. And he does something similar called Layout Effects Mate that does this similar idea for layout, or not layout, effect phases. It's a really cool plugin. I am going to link it in the YouTube description as well as on the site. But yeah, he and I talked about this when it came out, when his came out, because I've been sitting on this for a bit, but I couldn't figure out how to make the user interface not infuriating. So I just gave up on it, and then like a week ago, I was like, oh, I can get that online in a day, and here we are a week later, because I suck at judging time. But it's done. So anyways, check out his plugin. His is for effects. This one's for delays. It is actually two plugins is probably where I should start. There's one that generates delays and another one that stores them live into sequences. That one being more for punting purposes. But I wanted the presets themselves to be generated separately because I felt like they would be fairly useful for building into cuestack shows as well. So here's a view of everything the plugin creates, or did create in this pass through. And at the top, we have our all presets, our 0 dot presets. And you'll notice there's only one preset. Sorry, slow down. There's all the presets, and then here's all the macros that are generated to go with them. So we've got a one-to-one going with the pattern selection to preset, and then at the end of that we have our times, and my default is quarter second, half second, 1, 2, and 4. But you'll notice if you have used the old delay plugin, which frankly I hated and was the motivation for making a new one, there is only one preset per pattern instead of having a left to right quarter second, left to right half second, left to right 1 second. What I learned at some point is that you can multiply delay values. And that's actually what this macro is here that I am including with it. This is more for cuestack purposes, but it's a very, very simple command, or it's a one-line macro is what I mean. A preset type 1 through, so all preset types, at delay, star the number that you want, so times the number you want. So all of these delays have been built as 0 to 1 second, which means you multiply that by any number and it becomes 0 to that number of seconds. It could be 0 to a quarter second. It can be 0 to 20 seconds. So that is exactly what these plugins are doing. The ones that select direction are setting a variable telling which preset to look at, and the ones that specify time set a variable saying how much time. And then when we get into the macro that executes it, it grabs the fixtures for that preset, puts them at that preset for timing, and then multiplies that by the amount of time that we wanted before storing them wherever we were aiming for. So it takes up so much less space than the last delay plugin, which I cannot overstate how much I did not like that thing after like a year after I had released it. But people liked it, so I didn't want to get rid of it. Anyways, so that's the overview of what it does. It builds a bunch of these things based on your layout, and then it can make a bunch of macros to call them up, multiply them by a time, and then store them into a queue. The next section, we're going to go ahead and go through how to set up each of these, starting with the delay generating plugin. All right, so when we go to generate our layout delays, there's one very, very important concept that we need to have ready. It's a layout. So I've actually built a couple. I was testing with some color force instances. But anyways, make sure your fixtures are arranged in a layout in the way that you want them to be arranged. For any of the circular delays, by default, they do pull from center. I think before I release this, I'm going to make the center point a setting that you can change. But so they do any of the rotations or the explosion ones, the circle out delays. They're all based on the center. It's not the center of the layout as a whole thing. The edges are measured by the farthest outside fixtures, left, right, and top and bottom. Any macros, any other items in the layout don't affect it. It is only the location of fixtures specifically. So just set it up how you want it. If your rig isn't this square, but you want a circle to be more evenly distributed, spread your trusses out so that it is a little more even as far as vertical versus horizontal measurements go. Make it more of a square is what I'm getting at. So have your layout built, and it is worth mentioning, do this on the master of the session, or even out of session, because you're not going to be needing to do this live in the middle of a show. You very actively should not be doing this live in the middle of a show. And anytime it's in session, it has to synchronize every change across all stations. When it builds these delays, it is assigning a specific time to every single fixture for every single delay. It's not the fastest process. Like, it's not like you'll see it run. It's not like the slowest thing, but like for creating, let's say 40 presets, it'll take, on my computer, takes a little over a minute. So like, don't add processing time to that doesn't need to be there. I very much recommend, like, out of session is always the fastest for anything that does a lot of commands, and this does a lot of commands, just so you're aware of how that's working. So anyway, let's go through the options here, and then we'll go take a look at the user config, which is a little backwards from how I usually do it, but I think those config options will make sense in that order. So layout to use, pretty straightforward. You can pick a layout number. So we can say layout 2 in this case, which has my color force added into it. Store at or after presets. I'm picking 1001, and I've set up the default settings between these two to be matching, so that if you just want to open it up, run one, then run the other, you can do that. So this value will match in the other plugin as well. So that's where it's going to start looking for space, as preset 0.1001, and then it gives you options for what to do in case of a conflict. So by default, my plugins try to avoid overwrites. However, if you're going to be updating this from show to show, especially like for doing a punt setup, you're going to want those macros to be calling the same presets, just updated with a new layout, presumably, where you can just plop in your XYZ information arranged by camera view, and update those presets you've been using. So I've set it up to where overwrite is, I might change that default, but you can have it automatically overwrite, merge and rename with the new one, or just merge into existing presets, or avoid and make sure not to overwrite anything. But I'm going to set this to, I'm going to set it to merge actually for this run. And then you have options for which delays you want included as it's generated. So you can just click on any of these to toggle them on and off. And the number in parentheses is how many delays are a part of that set. So as we went through, and you can just play around to see which one of these are which, but we have our basic horizontal ones, the horizontal multiples that are like multiple left to right or multiple with wings. I mean, you can read. There's the name of the sets, with custom being at the very bottom, and we will get into what those are, but I've included 6 samples. It was 1, and then I started having fun with it, I guess. So anyways, there's the custom options at the bottom, and then you hit build delays. and it'll warn you if there's going to be an overwrite. Actually, I'm just not going to sit through this right now. Like I said, it takes about a minute, but anyways, it'll warn you. Hell, we'll run it. And when you aren't, for fuck's sake, when you aren't in that single screen, you will get a progress bar showing you it going fixture by fixture to apply those delays, as well as how many presets are left. So I'm going to go ahead and off this thing. I'm going to off the correct one this time. All right, so anyways, it'll go through and it'll build out all of your presets from there. Okay, so as far as the settings go for this, I'm going to pull this up in the text editor just because it's a little bit cleaner. I've got too many windows open like usual. All right, so we have, so at the top, we have our main just default. So everything we see here is everything that we just had the option to change. The default layout number it's going to pick, where it's going to ask to store at initially, the layout option it'll pick, and then whether these are enabled or disabled by default. Below that are a couple of advanced settings. These are the time path. So I've set it up so where you can actually like have the delay speed up or slow down as it moves along, and I'll show that here in a little bit. As well as an exponent for a couple of these curves. So I would leave these at 1. These are more useful in the custom setup options if you want to go mess with those. And speaking of which, there is below that I have listed out the way to build a custom preset. So what I did in making this was I made an engine that you can provide parameters to. You give it a set of parameters, which animation you want to use, and then wings and rotations and everything you see here, and a layout. I don't know if I said that already. So instead of me picking like which ones you should use or shouldn't use, and also instead of having to make you pick all of the parameters for every single one, which was the original idea, and it seemed infuriating. What I did is I just made this accessible. If you're going to get into like making custom ones, just take the time to read it. I will provide support in the sense of like if something is just actively not working, I will make sure that it's working. I don't want to provide anybody something that doesn't do what it says it will do. I am not offering support to explain how to use this in detail, because this is like plugins for MA. This is something that can get very hairy. So if you don't feel comfortable trying to build these, then I wouldn't suggest messing with them. You still get all the pre-built arrangements that I've made here, and as updates come out, there's a new form that I'm wanting to put into it. I want to do like a chevron form, and I'll probably end up coming up with some others. But as updates come up, I will probably add to what can be included by default. But yeah, I want to be realistic as far as what my time is to be able to support this. So I made a couple of samples just showing off some of the features, showing like what beat divisions look like. So like our corner waves, if we go and take a look over here, we've gotten a preset that like it applies to a couple of things. One, we moved our center point for the circle out here. I split it into 3 beats, which is something you don't see in any of these. And then there is a, what did I call it? Beat spread? Yeah, beat spread, where half of the amount of time of each of those is spent, is actually a negative spread. So it's going the opposite direction of the overall delay. So there's a lot you can do just with that. There is the 4-beat circle, which shows just the beat divisions. And then I've shown a couple of different timing curves. So you can have it accelerate as it moves. You can have it decelerate as it moves. You can have it do what I've called an S curve. So it'll slow down and speed up, start fast, slow down in the middle, speed up in the end. And then sine, which is the opposite. It's like the low fade path, where it starts slower, speeds up, and then slows down towards the end, kind of a smoother animation. So I wanted to showcase some of those things and let people make their own. Also, any of these default ones that are included, the plugin will come with a text file that is the code that is used for all of these. Oh, so not for all of those. This this style code for all of these, so that if you want to take those and apply your own twists to them, you can do that. You can disable all of the originals and just have your own set of custom ones if you want to if you want to get it fine-tuned to that point, if you kind of know what it is you generally want to play with or not. I just kind of wanted to make sure there were enough options to get going with for the average user that doesn't want to maybe go this deep with it. So I think that's it, actually. And this is my first take through this video, so I'm going to be kind of surprised, but like that is it. That's the whole process for the generating part of it. So in the next part, I will go into the layout, not the layout, for trying to read, the macro generating portion. All right, so now we are on to the macro building set. And for this one, I'm going to start in the user config and then go to the actual execution. So in our config section, we have a couple of, well, let's just go through the options. The ability to enable and disable using the default presets. It's set to true or set to false, and that applies to these values below. So if you set these to false, it will always prompt you for which presets to use and which times to use. If you set them to true, it will prompt you to confirm that you want to use these, but it will start by asking, do you want to use these times that were provided? So the default times I've included. Anytime I've seen the old delays used, people seem to have stuck with the times that I did there, which were quarter second, half, 1, 2, and 4 seconds. So I'm leaving that as a default. You can obviously change that. That is why it's something you can edit. Next down from that is the delay presets. So these would be the 0 dot whatever presets that we are referencing. They are set up so they can be done in ranges. I have explained the formatting down here. But I have also set these to match what the generator does, which means starting at preset 1001, and I gave it a range of 100 presets. It will only make a macro for any preset that exists when this is run. Then we have defaults for what the appearance looks like when a macro is activated, when a macro is deactivated, these are just red, green, blue in range 0 to 100. And then the default target that it will store to. All of this can be adjusted after it is generated. The only thing that cannot be adjusted is where it starts storing macros. So let's go run this thing. Even though we already have done so, I'm actually just going to go in here and we're going to uninstall what we already had. So let's go to presets. We're going to say uninstall, and we're going to run our plugin. Okay. It's going to ask if you want to use these presets. It'll tell you how many you found. I'm just going to say okay for these. These are the default times. In the event that you don't want to, you hit cancel and you can specify what you want to use. I will skip the half second. I'll just do 1, 2, 4, and I'll do 8 just so you can see it actually take those. Then it'll run. I actually should include a prompt that has it confirm where you want to start macros at, and I'm going to make a note of that now. Oops. There's a lot less time to hit some of this shit on the road, so sorry. But there will be a prompt for that as well to confirm that. So we'll say okay there, and if we go check out our space again, we can see that we have basically ended up making the same set here. These are labeled delay 2 because I guess when I was building the file I screwed up removing a variable, but anyways. So it creates all these macros for us. Great. We can set what our on color and off color is. So all of these, when they do their visual feedback, I just figured this was more versatile than trying to do the image thing. I know the image thing is cool for everybody's page, but this is just, it's faster for the processor, it's more practical, and I didn't have time to make 10 million image sets for this, and didn't seem like the most important part of it. So I apologize if that was a big deal. But when it's doing that, it's actually referencing macros to set its color. So you can actually click on these and change their appearance so that now you can actually set what the off appearance is and change what the on appearance is. So now if we want it to be white when it is selected, we can have it do that. So now they are all white when selected and blue when deselected to make it real easy to change that however you like. And again, when you apply these to a layout, it'll be the same thing. So that is what that's making there. And that's the oh, one more thing. This last, besides the uninstall macro, which does what it says it will do, there is the store macro. Now you don't need to fire this directly. However, if you want to change where things are storing, this is a very important macro. So I'll go into blind edit, clear out. It will select the fixtures of the delay preset you've picked. It'll put them at that preset, multiply them by the time that you've selected, and then store into, in this case, it is the range that you picked in your user config over here. So that is this range. If you want to change this, you can either add to this line, but if you need to store to a second line, it is best to repeat these two lines before storing, because I've tried /KA when storing, which is keep active, and /K equals true, and it doesn't seem to work. And if it does, it sure as hell doesn't work reliably. So it is best, after doing a store command, if you're going to do a second one, repeat at this preset again, multiply it again, and then store to your next range. If you're wanting to store to multiple locations. So please, 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 just be mindful of that. But ideally, I find it best to just name your sequences in a way that they can be referenced by wildcards easily, which is what I've done here, even though this isn't a color executor. That's a lot of people using this with the color grid, so I've left that as the default. Anyways, so that's that, and that's kind of the entirety of how to use this, which I guess is great because I've probably been talking way fucking longer than I meant to be. So yeah, hope this helps some people out. I hope this explanation has been worthwhile if anybody has sat through the entirety of it, because I know I talk a lot. You can check this out on my website, galphadesigns.com. You can contact me from the contact form on there to tell me things that I can do better, or to scream at me, or whatever the fuck you want to do. Genuinely, though, hope this helps out as we're getting into festival season. And if there are any suggestions as to preferences for different defaults to have, please, please, please feel free to let me know. I love to know just kind of which ones you guys are actually using with this. That way I know what's most important to highlight as people download this, so that for the people that just want to kind of open it up and go, those options are there. Yeah, that's it. Shutting up. Cool. Bye. One thing that I forgot to mention in the while I was shooting that is that there are going to be two versions of this available on my site. There is going to be the full version, which is everything that you have seen that I've detailed, and then there's going to be a basic version that the only difference is the only patterns that it will make are these first four. And the reasoning for that is not to try to extract extra money out of people. The point is to make a cheaper version that if there are for people that only need a couple basic directions, people who aren't messing with rigs that are big enough that a lot of these patterns would be worth it, or they don't feel like they really care about them. I don't want to charge people for things that they don't feel like they're going to be using. So I wanted to provide that as a reduced option for those people. So again, just wanted to make sure that kind of comes out the right way. Didn't want it to be a surprise when people go on the site and be like, what the fuck's wrong with this asshole? So yeah. Okay, shutting up.